Yeah, good morning. October 11th, I believe. So we're getting a little bit closer. We've had a good couple weeks of practice. We're getting closer to those secret scrimmages are coming up for us. So we do have one of those coming up this weekend. So finally we'll get to play somebody else. But yeah, no, we've gotten better. We've been able to kind of do some inter-squad scrimmages. I guess a couple of them now just to kind of see where we're at. But I think we're kind of getting tired of playing against the same person. We don't have any major injuries recent, but a few nagging things here and there that have kept a few people out, but nothing serious. So we've had good looks, getting a lot of reps. We'll practice today and then get a day off, which they probably need a little bit, and then kind of regroup before the weekend. But excited about the group, excited where we're at. Still a long way to go, but certainly excited to play somebody else.
Mixing and matching still?
Yeah, I think we're getting a little bit of an idea. Really haven't put like a starting group, so to speak, together yet. Now that's probably coming over the next couple days, and that won't be set in stone by any means. But we do need to start looking at some lineups. I pretty much mix the teams every day, so they don't ever play with the same ones. But there's only so many options you got. You got point guards, and they either can play with, say, a 2, and then the next day they kind of swap spots or teams. So it's a little bit of a mix and match, but really just trying to see who plays well together, what dynamics work. I think we probably have legitimately 7 or 8 starters, and now we just got to figure out which 5 play the best together and then who can come off the bench and some of those types of things. So still working through that.
Coach, last time you were talking about how you would kind of talk with some of the girls saying, hey, I kind of need the effort, like with Tabby, what you did at TCU is kind of what I need. What kind of response have you gotten since coaches maybe don't always talk to their players like that?
Yeah, no, we've had great response. A lot of that was through the summer and preseason with give me the best version of yourself, play free. I wasn't giving them any sets or restrictions, I guess, just allowing them to play as free of mind as they possibly could. And now we kind of have to start defining a few things. Still haven't defined all the roles. It's still kind of show me what you got mode a little bit, but doing it within the constraints of whether it's the offense or the defensive philosophy. And because we mix defenses and we play man and zone and we press, some people may be better in zone. So for a week we did all zone. So some kids may look a little bit better in that week, and then we may play just man. And so then another kid shines in that. So now it's really been about the last, 3 practices as we've really tried to put the whole thing together. And so now it's kind of who can thrive, in all of it. And that's still early, and that's not fair, to evaluate them. I guess we're 2 practices in of doing that. Today will be day 3. And so once we get through this week in the scrimmage, I think we'll have a much better idea.
And not to single Tabby out in this, but it's something I've always kind of found interesting is that, outside looking in, you always just kind of expect year to year you're going to get better. But it doesn't always work out like that, especially when you come to a new school, you come to a new area. There's more to it than just being a year older, right?
A year older doesn't guarantee you anything, and especially now with a new coach and a third coach in 3 years. They're picking up on another system, and this is new lingo and terminology. So no, it doesn't. But I just want them to be in the right headspace, because I think that's what allows us to get the best out of them. And so if they're excited to come in the facility every day, they feel good about themselves. I'm a BU aligned with us guy. So just if you feel like you can be yourself when you come in, then I think I get them at their best. And so it's just, kind of trying to pull it out of them, let them know we believe in them. We haven't lost any games. We haven't dished out playing time. Now that's going to change this week. They're going to start to learn a little bit. And so we'll have to talk through that here. And I don't want them to overreact based on who gets more minutes or less minutes, in the scrimmage. But that's coming. And so we're going to have to navigate that too.
How do you manage different philosophies? I know the girls you brought here, they were in your system, so they understand how you want to play. But you've got kind of a potpourri of players that come from different programs that learn to play defense a certain way, offense. How do you manage all that?
Yeah, well, this has been pretty smooth managing. First off, the managing piece, we have great kids, like really good character. I'm not spending a lot of time being a disciplinarian or a psychologist or anything like that. Like, we have good kids that make the right decisions, that show up every day, and I think want to get better. I think there's times we need to chat. We need to see them in here a little bit more to even get more out of them. But for the most part, really good kids that allow me just to coach and come up with ways and opportunities to put them in the best situation to have success. But most of them, they can play and they can play in our system. It's not one of these where we're just looking at it. It's a new coach and you got kids that, are just polar opposite of what you would want. There are plenty of kids that were here, of those 6 that really can fit what we do. So that hasn't really been, we've been okay. It's just them learning it. They don't know it. And so we're having to teach it. And, Jordan Harrison, because Zaya got hurt, is the only one that knows it. And she was a freshman last year. So I was talking to her after practice yesterday. A year ago at this time, she was as lost as can be, and then she quickly started to figure it out. And so you have some veterans, though, that have been around, that have had success. So you brought up Tavi, but Lauren Fields would be another one that's, that's a kid that's produced in the Big 12 at Oklahoma State and started at Arizona, who, beat West Virginia in the first round of the tournament last year. So the kid knows what's going on. And then, of course, we returned 4 of the 5 starters, so they should have a pretty good idea. And so it's just getting them up to speed with what we expect. I mean, that's the only thing.
Like say, for instance, like kids may learn to defend a ball screen a certain way. You may do it a different way. Have you encountered any of that where they go back to the old way and you're like, no, this is the way we do it?
Yeah, no, not too much, honestly. There are different ways, specifically to say a ball screen, which I know you're talking about a bigger picture than that. But we all work on all the different ways to defend them. We just now want to come up with what's the best way for the players that we have, right? And we'll call it something different. So the terminology may be different, but how you defend them isn't all that different. How you come off of a down screen in basketball isn't really all that different. Now it's just, it's big picture stuff. How fast do we want to play? That is what maybe is a little bit different than a year ago. So that's something that I've noticed. Like we're trying to go a little bit faster and they may want to take their time. How we guard the ball defensively is a little different maybe, but you're still guarding the ball. You still close out. You still contain, whether we push it one way or the previous staff pushed it a different way. That's just, yeah, it's okay.
One thing here, you mentioned the girls wanting to rev it up in the press. How has that gone so far? Have you continued to do that and explore that more?
Yeah, no, we're still trying to play fast, and we're putting in the system as I always would. It hasn't been any different than any other stop, and I have practice plans from every year, through the last 19 years, and they're not always the same every year, but you follow a pretty good blueprint, and so no, we're following that blueprint, and there's days that it was really good. Our first scrimmage, the press looked unreal, so that's great from the defensive end and horrible, from the offensive end, because that means we turned it over like crazy. But we scrimmaged the second time, and it almost kind of flipped. We got way more comfortable against the pressure, didn't turn it over nearly as much. And then you look at the defensive side, and you're like, well, why? What did we do something differently on the defensive end, or did the offense just get more comfortable? But that's why going to play somebody else is so beneficial, because now we're just going against ourselves every day in our system and our structure. We need somebody else to expose some of these other weaknesses that we have.
When you're evaluating returning players, how deep into last year's film did you go, or are you focusing more on what they show you in practice every day?
Well, both. We went fairly deep into the season. I probably at some point throughout my time here have watched every Big 12 game in some capacity. I did not go back into the non-conference really much at all, but definitely through the conference schedule. But that was just to get more familiar with the league and our team, not necessarily the players. I get most of my information from our players from watching them every single day throughout the summer, the fall, and now the preseason. So, but feel pretty good about it. And we're getting some stats on them. So I think we talked about me being an analytic guy, or somebody asked that a week or two ago. But we do. Now we stat our scrimmages and practices, and we keep that cumulative. So we've got a pretty good idea on, where we're at in a live setting.
Question.
Well, when you go to say for the first secret closed scrimmage that you can't talk about, when you go into that, you have a plan, and you get out of that where you determine, okay, do we need to add more? Do we need to add less? Is that what you usually do when you go into this? What can they handle? Is that how you go about it?
Yeah, a little bit. I've tried not to put in too much because, again, I'm free of mind. I don't want to put in too much, but I didn't even have any out-of-bounds plays in until yesterday, and we put a couple in, and I need to put in a couple more today just so we can function. If the ball actually goes out of bounds on the baseline, we need to be able to throw it in. Right now, we just take it to half court all the time, but I don't want to put too many in. So, yeah, I think we'll just learn a ton, whether it's what we're good at, what we're not good at, X and O wise on the court, and then the groups, the lineups, and who played well together. And, some kids do, I think we hate it a little bit as coaches, when the lights come on, I kids will just play, and they don't necessarily do it in drills. But you do want to see what happens when the so-called lights come on. So when they do come on this weekend, who does play well and who can thrive? And we've tried to create some chaos in practice from time to time just to see who can function in some of the chaos and who maybe doesn't function as well. So I think we have enough in. I don't think we have too much in yet, but I am excited to see how it works when we play somebody else.
And with your team, what do you want to see against you? What do you need to see? What do they need to play against?
Well, I think just something different to see just how's our flow and tempo, and can we play at a controlled pace? Because right now our pace is just, sometimes it's way too fast, sometimes it's too slow. I don't know that we've quite caught on to the tempo that that I would like us to play at. And some of it's practice. I mean, we've got a drill that we're going and we got to stop and teach. And then we got to stop and teach. And then all of a sudden I need to rev them up and they're not ready to be revved up because we've been in the drill situation too long. So it's not all on them. Some of it's just on us in practice. But that's also why I try to scrimmage as much as possible. So typically Saturday mornings we would like inter-squad scrimmage. So we practice all week, for us, turn the lights on here and play against each other. And we'll play quarters with certain teams and then we'll go to another quarter, coach them up, another one, stat it up, kind of see what we're working with there. So I think we've been able to get a good enough idea of what it's going to look like, but I am a little more excited just to see against somebody else.
Zone has been, with Plitza White and back to Carey, that's been kind of a kryptonite a little bit with this team. Have you noticed that, their ability to score offensively and shoot against zones?
Well, no, not necessarily. I mean, we had like a man scrimmage and then like a zone scrimmage. And so they were about the same. Now, one was in here and one was in the Coliseum, and we didn't shoot it as well in the Coliseum, but we hadn't practiced in there a ton either. And, of course, you just got, wide open space behind, too. So we need to get back in there to kind of see if we can make some shots. That was really the only thing I noticed that was a bit different between the two. Percentages have been pretty close throughout. We've been pretty close. Now, we need to elevate them. We didn't shoot it great here a year ago from the field or from the three, and we're a tick better than that so far, but not still at the level that I would like to be at.
Coach, last time out, we kind of talked a lot about the full court pressure. Offensively, though, we're still wondering like what's that looking like? How many, is it major changes? What would your offense? What do you want it to look like?
Yeah, I don't know if they're major differences. I'm sure there are differences. I know Dawn, when she had been a motion offensive coach, and it looked like they kind of went a little bit more to ball screen offense at some point last year too. So it will be a mix of motion. There'll be some ball screens. Late in the game, you're going to try to put it in your best player's hands. I think every coach knows that. And so we haven't done a ton of that yet, but we do need to, we've done some situations. So we're trying to, work on certain kids making the right decision, and decision doesn't necessarily mean shot. It just means trust your teammates. But again, some of that's on us now. We got to start putting that group together. They have not really been together a ton up to now, but now moving forward, they're going to play a little bit more together so they can just get a little more familiar with each other and with us, and what we want out of it.
Curious, you mentioned the depth perception in the Coliseum, and I know coaches going back always wanted to be in there a little bit more to get accustomed to that. Has that changed your thought process, and maybe you need to practice a little bit more in the Coliseum to get used to it?
Yeah, probably. I think since I've been here, we've maybe had 4 practices in the Coliseum, but there's other things that go on, so I'm not necessarily complaining. But yeah, I did tell Kayla, our director of operations, I was like, hey, if there's ever, we need to get in there a little bit more. So if you can find us some days, make sure we do get in there. And it's just because we've been in here so long. Like, it's not, most arenas, especially at the Power 5 level, are going to have it's going to be pretty wide open behind. So it's something our kids will get used to. We just haven't done it in quite a while.
I think it's the darkness too, and the backlit. That's part of it too.
Sometimes black actually, or backlit actually helps it a little bit because it takes it away. It's usually when it's light and bleachers are pushed back and there's just no wall back there that makes it different. But Coliseum is big and the ceiling's high, and it's it can get kind of, when we're only in there practicing, it's not overly loud because it's just such a big space without the fans, and then we practice in here, it's close quarters and it's louder and the walls are tighter and the noise bounces off, and so that's the other thing I've noticed is our energy in one place versus the other seems a bit different. It's not, it just feels that way. But a lot of times I say that too about pressure, right? Pressure in a small gym, tight quarters feels like it's all on top of you, right? In a big place, it may feel like there's a little more room to work.
keeping stats on scrimmages. Yesterday, Josh Eiler was saying points per possession and assisted turnover ratio is what he looks at. Does that track with you, or is there something else?
Well, it would track with me, not maybe right now when you're playing against each other. It's really hard when because it's always, you're going to gripe as a coach when you play against each other. It's either the offense is really good or the defense isn't, or vice versa. So points per possession right now, not quite as much. Assist to turnover, of course. I mean, that's always a significant, and I'm a ball movement, extra pass guy. But again, it's same thing. Like if we don't turn it over, then what's wrong with our defense, right? Or if we're turning it over, what's wrong with the offense? So it's really hard to evaluate that for me right now. I would be more, I'm interested in the shooting percentages. What types of shots are we getting? So we're charting quality of possession is something we chart right now. It doesn't mean make or miss even. So that's another way to look at it, is not necessarily percentage, although I do want some of those to go up. But did we get the right shot? Right? Did we make the right play?
Quality possession.
Yeah, it depends on who gets it and where it comes from, and do we get the ball reversed? So we need some ball reversals. So we just have a little bit of a metric, and then our video coordinator tracks that. And so after each scrimmage, we go through and he kind of color codes so we know what type of possession that we're getting. So yeah, it's a fairly longer metric.
Or did you say you're having multiple scrimmages against an outside opponent?
Yeah, coming up. Yeah, we get 2. So you get 2. We don't have any exhibition games, so there'll be 2 secret scrimmages coming up. So yeah.
Is that a usual pattern for you, or just?
No, most of the time it has been. I haven't done too many true exhibition games, so it's been more scrimmage. For me, I can get most of the time more out of it because you can stay as long as you want. You can do possessions. You could do 5 quarters. You could do 6 quarters. You could do special situations. I mean, you can really kind of get as deep as you want to in that. Whereas an exhibition, you're going to play your 4 quarters and you're gonna go home. And I'm not saying there's not value to that, because I do think there is. But for us, if you only get 2 of them, I want the freedom to do a little more.
You had mentioned Lauren. I was going to ask you about her because it seems like kind of an interesting story. I mean, obviously, she had the Big 12 experience, and so she'd played against West Virginia before. But then, obviously, being at Arizona last year, and then they beat West Virginia in the tournament. Bringing her in there was was it interesting at all? Kind of when she comes in here and having gone through that situation last year. Or?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, so the backstory even with Lauren. So Lauren and Zaya Nugent, who played together way back in the day, some AAU basketball. So they had a connection. Coach Grayson, Jessica Grayson for me, coached her at Oklahoma State. And then Aaron Grant was with her at Arizona, right. And Kayla Scott, who came, here from Arizona. So we had quite the connection with Lauren, but she was an all Big 12 kid at Oklahoma State. She's averaged 15 plus points in this league, and then had a different role at Arizona. Like that just wasn't asked of her to score as much, a little bit more of a spacer and a defensive player. So we need to get back to the Oklahoma State days, and that's what we talk to Lauren about all the time. And then just to get her even a little more efficient. It was a little volume at Oklahoma State, so we still want some volume, but if we can get efficiency up with a little less volume, I think we're going to get her where we want her. And she's come on here the last couple weeks, big time. Yeah, she started to play really well. She, I think, was our second leading scorer in our scrimmage against each other the other day.
I'm going to ask you players that have taken a jump or emerged in the 2 weeks since we talked to you.
Really, I don't know. I think we're getting, for the most part, out of him what I would have expected. I mean, Quinterly's led us in scoring, of course, so there's no real surprise. I'm not giving any secret out. I don't think with that information. Kyle Watson's played really well for us. Lauren's come on. Jordan Harrison's been really, really solid and good for us, and played really well in the second scrimmage. She wasn't as good in the first scrimmage. Kylie Blackston's been solid. Tavi Diggs has been solid. I mean, it's been a really, really good group. I mean, Jayla hasn't shot it or scored it well, but she does a lot of other things too that are really good. Tirza's been hurt a little bit more, so she didn't scrimmage, and Messiah was gone as well. And Danelle's been a little bit better here lately. She's gotten a little bit better shape, so she's been able to run and give us an inside presence. So I think we're in a pretty good spot. And then we're just waiting on Mosbury and Holzer's waivers. So we're kind of still haven't heard anything on that one. I think we're close on Shayla, maybe this week on her. I know it's probably another week or so, but I think Mosbury maybe this week.
I guess you want to do these before competitions because they can't play in any of the whatever. You a little more encouraged because the North Carolina situation with their player got resolved favorably when they initially. Does that give you a little bit more encouragement that maybe some of these are going to?
Oh man, I don't know that it really does. I mean, we're not getting very many. I mean, they're just what I heard the other day. I think 20% of them right now are going through, 80% are not. And a year ago, that was about completely flipped. So I really, honestly, John, I think it's case by case. Some of them I think you have a little bit better case than others. One of ours I probably feel a little bit better about if I was just being honest than the other, but we'll kind of see what happens.
Well, I guess clearly that's a two-track plan then, because that's going to impact your depth. You got plan one with them, and I guess plan two, you got to figure out with fewer players, maybe more versatility.
Yeah, no, it changes, and they can't play in the secret scrimmages. So again, that's kind of what I got to start doing here the next couple days until we hear is you kind of may have to limit them a little bit in some of their reps, which we have not done up to date. They just get the same, for the most part, reps as everybody else. But yeah, we may have to limit a little bit of their reps, and that's where these rotations, and we were talking through it today in our staff meeting with the coaches, is what does this look like? And then, okay, if this is that group, then who comes in and who fits what need, and what if we go a different way? So it's not perfect, but I got some ideas for the scrimmage at least to see some groups.
Obviously, I guess late last week or over the weekend, the Big 12, the preseason stuff starts coming out. Do you go over that with your players at all, or is that just something, it's preseason, I don't care about that stuff?
Well, both. It's preseason, so what is in the big picture, it doesn't mean a whole lot. But we talk about it for sure. JJ got on the first team, but I'll say that I thought it was interesting that she was a unanimous all pick a year ago, but was not unanimous preseason. So JJ. Maybe, yeah, but JJ, take that for how you would like. But somebody in here doesn't think you're an all first team all conference in this league. Yeah, take it how you want. I don't need to tell you what to do with it, but here's some information and you roll with it. And then where we were picked, I think we probably could have been picked a little bit higher based on how they finished last year and with what we return. Now, new coach, so who knows, how people look at that one, but I thought maybe we were a few spots lower than I maybe would have anticipated based on the results of a year ago. So again, we had that conversation and we put it in the back of our brains, and we'll keep moving forward and sure hope that we don't finish 8th, which is where we were picked, that's not the goal for us.
Is it interesting for you to fill out your ballot? I mean, these are teams you never really coached against.
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, some of them were different, a lot of which I have played. I've played at OU and Kansas State, and so a lot of those places, TCU. I mean, I'm familiar with it. It's still my footprint a little bit was the Big 12. So I had some familiarity. I had to study some of those rosters, and you would just want to make sure you do it right. Like I've always said, I think we should make it public. Why not? Why not? Because I think there's some gamesmanship that goes on from time to time with these things. Let's just throw it, put it out there, and see what that does, But we don't do that. Who voted for who, and why not? I wouldn't mind. Yeah, sure, right? All of us, and be pretty transparent with it. Probably doesn't. It's not going to happen, and it doesn't in most sports. But at times, I'm I don't know why we don't do that.
It might expose some of the coaches that don't really take it seriously too.
It does, yeah. And so I wanted to answer your question. I guess that's where I was going with that. Is I wanted to take it serious and make sure I knew, and ask some of my coaches that had been in the league and seen some of these kids to make sure that we were doing our due diligence, because it is important, and there is a recognition for the student athletes, and you want to make sure you do it right by them.
Looking at your schedule, particularly your conference schedule, I didn't look at it deeply, but you have some early repeat games. I think Cincinnati's one of those that you come back play. I think maybe Central Florida might be another one. Have you thought about that and about how the schedule sets up and where your tough spots are and maybe where travel-wise and all of that? Have you gone through that?
Well, I think, more from the travel component probably than anything else. You're right. We do have a couple of the double games early. I don't know exactly how it played out that way, but we do play a couple of them before we ever play anybody, one time. So I think we've looked at it a little bit more from the travel just to get prepared from that standpoint and start booking flights and hotels and buses and those types of things. But I think we got to just wait a little bit, because I don't, you kind of have an idea on I guess we don't, where the standings are going to end up playing. So where, is there a little stretch where maybe you can get on a run, or, this might be a really difficult stretch. So I haven't really looked at that a ton yet. And just really more of the logistics than anything else, and the non-conference way more than league play for now.
How about the preliminary prep? Last question here. You're learning all of the teams. And so in your old conference, you'd go back and you knew the players, you had your files, you could go back and look at you basically have to, even though you played them and you know them, you don't know them intimately yet. Have you had to do some extra work to get kind of familiar with what you're going to face and get kind of an idea before you go into a little bit more?
Some, not no in-depth study by any stretch. I got enough trying to figure out our own group and getting us to where we need to be that I'm not spending a whole lot of time on Big 12 opponents yet. But really, it was more when I watched us play back most of those Big 12 games a year ago that I was, you're just keeping an eye on a few things that other teams do, and here's how they are. Here's their identity. That I think I probably have a little bit better idea of. Player personnel, probably not as much, but team identity, yes. What type of team are they going to be? What type of coach is that? Are they defensive-minded, offensive-minded? Are they going to junk it up? What are we going to see? So I think I have a pretty good idea from that standpoint, and we'll dig into that. And we'll be – you're right. I haven't played them. Don't play them twice a year. We haven't been doing this and they haven't. And so that's the flip side of it, But now they may just have we got 3 or 4 new coaches in the league with the new teams, I guess 4 or 5. See 4 or 5, 6 of us maybe. So there'll be some newness for all of us. But yeah, not my attention yet.
I'm wondering, with the coaches, coaches talking, and obviously the league is changing this year. It's going to change again next year. Has there been any feedback at all, like with the Big 12, like what scheduling is going to look like next year with the 4 additional teams coming in? Or?
No, not necessarily. Amount of game, like we're going to play an 18-game schedule. I think the men are going to play a 20-game schedule. That was voted on. That was decided. Outside of that, no. There hasn't been a whole lot decided. I think they protect one regional opponent, which I'm sure will always be Cincinnati for us. And then outside of that, I think that's about all we got at this point.
So the women won't go to 20?
Well, no.
Okay.
Women voted on 18.
Just no 2 trips to BYU, right?
I wouldn't think so. I would highly doubt that one. I don't know. We go to BYU. Does that automatically mean they come back here? Could you go back 2 years in a row? I don't know. Yeah, I really don't.
I would imagine there has to be a geographic component to whatever they do.
I would think so too. I don't. They got the scheduling gurus that got their systems and run it through the computer and generate it all. So I think that's how it's run. Now, I don't even know how they'll determine who you play twice. I don't know what I don't know what we're going to do. It'll be unbalanced though. It's going to be an unbalanced schedule. We know that.
Right.
Would you prefer the 20 or 18? Which I don't know.
Well, yeah, I think it depends on which way you look at it. You like 20 because it helps you in the non-conference, but 20 also beats you up throughout the year. Does it hurt your net? Does it help your net? We're going to be 500. Somebody's going to win and somebody's going to lose within the league. And you can play out a league, then you can maybe get 2 wins. 2 teams can get 2 wins. So I've been okay with 18. 20 to me is a lot. That's a grind, especially in the Big 12. So I think 18 is a good number. We had a coach in our league that wanted 16 in our conversation. So I haven't thought 20 was great for us. I don't know what the men's I guess I've never asked Josh too what the men's rationale is to 20. But 18's been pretty good. But either way, you don't get a balanced schedule. And so that's what becomes difficult for me is your seedings now in your conference tournament can be a little all over the place because you haven't played a balanced schedule.
Go to 16, you don't play everyone once almost.
Yeah, you would almost play everybody once and one team maybe twice, I guess, probably. Yeah.
That wouldn't be very fair, I wouldn't think.
Yeah, none of
Not
it's
very
fair.
equitable. No,
None of it
it's
is the way we do it. It's not. That's just the bottom line. Is the conference regular season champion even a true champion when you don't play everybody twice? I don't know. Year to year depends. But I know it. When I was at SFA, we lost the league twice by 1 game, and it was a complete unbalanced schedule where we had all the top teams, 4 or 5, top 4 or 5 teams. We played twice, and the team that won it had 2 or 3 of them. We went to them one year. They never even played us at home, and we lose by 1, and they're the regular season champion. Yeah, one year that happened, and then we had some weird system. We were doing points for wins, and we were the 1 seed in the tournament, even though we didn't win the regular season. So you really becomes a mess if you're not careful.